I've done it. From what I can tell you, I've broken my face twice. I came back early with the risk of losing my vision. Had broken fingers. I still came back. So I'm not gonna sit here and be like, when I see people saying who doesn't want to play. I've been way too much. I've done way too much, for this city, and putting myself at risk, for people to be saying that. So I do think it's bullshit.
So everyone knows who this is, right? If you clicked on this video, you know who this is. Well, this is Joel Embiid, or how some people like to refer to him as a playoff choker, a flopper, a crybaby, a free throw merchant, and so on. In light of the recent news Joel Embiid has been in, assaulting a reporter in the locker room because of the article he put out about Embiid's brother who passed away and his son who he named after his brother, and saying that it's bullshit that fans and media are questioning his intent to play. And now with Embiid being suspended for 3 games, by the time you guys are seeing this, tomorrow night Joel Embiid should be playing against the New York Knicks. What better time to talk about Joel Embiid than now? Let's start at the very beginning, being his rookie season. Well, what should have been his rookie season. Back in 2014, the Philadelphia 76ers drafted Joel Embiid with the 3rd overall pick, but Embiid didn't make his NBA debut until 2016 because of a foot injury which held him out for his first 2 years. He ended up finishing 3rd in Rookie of the Year that year, missed the playoffs, and Malcolm Brogdon won Rookie of the Year because Joel Embiid only played 31 games, still recovering from the foot injury. Now, this is where I felt like Embiid started to show his potential and rise to stardom, being in his second season, being 2017-2018, the year Ben Simmons joined the team. In the second season, Joel Embiid, alongside Ben Simmons, led the Philadelphia 76ers to the playoff, where they would eventually lose to the Boston Celtics in 5 games and be putting up 21 points and 13 rebounds while playing through an orbital fracture and a concussion. Moving on to the 2018-2019 season, and to start off this year, the Philadelphia 76ers did not have much expectations going into the year. Throughout the season, the Philadelphia 76ers saw an opportunity to pick up 2 all-star caliber players, and Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler. So after the trade, the starting lineup now becomes Ben Simmons, JJ Redick, Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid, and they were one of the favorites to come out the East. First round comes, and they handled the Nets in 5 games, with Embiid missing a game due to knee tendonitis bothering him throughout the playoffs. The main highlight of this series I like to remember was the Jared Dudley and Ben Simmons beef. Now after the first round, the stage is set for the 76ers' biggest competition in the East, being the Toronto Raptors, who in hindsight we know that they ended up winning the championship this year. But before the series started, I would say an overwhelming amount of people thought the Sixers had this series in the bag based off of star power. But this series is where I believe Embiid being a playoff choker really started, because throughout this series Embiid put up 20 points in 5 out of the 7 games, shooting less than 30% in 3 of those games, which ultimately led to
you gotta be aware of the inbounder here if you're Philly.
It's off to Leonard, defended by Simmons. Is this the dagger?
The 76ers lost in historic fashion, being that the only game-winning buzzer-beater shot in Game 7 history. After a disappointing postseason, everyone fully expected the Sixers to run it back with at least Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, and Joel Embiid, and have Tobias Harris kick her off. Well, the Sixers decided to take a different turn into their offseason, deciding to bring back Tobias Harris and doing a sign-in trade to send Jimmy Butler to the Miami Heat for Josh Richardson. And at the time, a lot of people thought, yeah, it's a loss, but Josh Richardson can fill into that defensive role, 3-and-D role, right, and have Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons be the main stars of the team. We don't know how the Sixers were going to start the year in 2019-2020. Even through COVID, Joel Embiid still put up 23 points and 12 rebounds, playing 51 out of 72 games. They ultimately lost in the first round. Ben Simmons got hurt before the series started. You all knew it was over from then. But now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of Joel Embiid and the 76ers. 2020-2021. Up until this point in Embiid's career, it felt like every season outside of 2018-2019 was like a filler season. Just a little progression for Joel Embiid, not much expectations up until this year. Embiid quickly became a definitive top player in the league, finishing 2nd in the MVP behind Jokic and 7th defensive player of the year. The downside of this year was it was the start of the foul baiting / free throw merchant allegations, which this was the first year he led the league in free throw attempts per game, being 10.7. Embiid being an absolute dominant run the whole season, but he was still recovering from a torn meniscus, and his path to the Eastern Conference Finals was right in front of him, taking out the Wizards in 5 games, and the Hawks taking out the New York Knicks. There couldn't have been a better scenario for the Sixers to make the Eastern Conference Finals. You go up against an Atlanta Hawks team led by Trae Young and agent Clint Capella, which we all expected Joel Embiid to dominate in this series, and Ben Simmons, him being one of the biggest players on the court at the guard position too, them still having shooters alongside. it felt like it was the Sixers series to lose. Joel Embiid put up 30 points in 4 of the 7 games that series, even having a 40-point game. Also 5 10+ free throw games. It seemingly felt like the Sixers should have won this series before it even reached 7 games, but unfortunately it did hit 7 games, and in game 7 Ben Simmons proceeded to fold at the worst possible time. But before we get into that play, let's talk about Ben Simmons throughout the whole series. Ben Simmons scored a total of 15 points in the 4th quarter. As you guys can see, these are his field goals in each of the 4th quarters. It has been a disaster. It seemingly felt like Ben Simmons didn't know how to play basketball anymore. Both quarter came around and he just forgot how to put the ball on the rim. 3 points in a quarter doesn't really help Joel Embiid out when he was averaging 30 in that series. And yes, the infamous play where Ben Simmons did pass up a layup on Trae Young.
When you know that the game is in your head. That's a dunk for Ben Simmons right there. You gotta, and I know you gotta.
Led to Joel Embiid and Doc Rivers going into the press conference after the game and basically publicly bashing Ben Simmons and his decision making. Embiid didn't make it any better in this series, having 16 turnovers in the last 2 games. As a big man, having 8 turnovers in game 6 and 8 turnovers in game 7 is not really a great look, and add people calling him a playoff joker. Now in the 2021-2022 season, Ben Simmons came into the offseason checked out, wanted to leave the 76ers. It was obvious, was no communication, came into practice being lazy, and around the trade deadline, the Philadelphia 76ers saw a disgruntled star in James Harden in Brooklyn and decided to pull the trigger and trade for him, trading away Seth Curry and Ben Simmons for James Harden. Now Harden and a young Maxey and Joel Embiid are leading this team. Joel Embiid yet again fell to being a runner-up to Nikola Jokic again in the MVP race, leading the league in points at 30.8, and yes, you guessed it, also led in the league in free throw attempts 11.8. But that didn't hinder Embiid at all, being the Sixers in 6 games in the first round and now matching up against his former teammate Butler. But unfortunately, Joel Embiid did miss the first 2 games this series because he needed to clear concussion protocols over the fact he sustained in game 6 against the Raptors. But now when Embiid comes back, they are down 0-2 to the Miami Heat. In game 3, the 76ers blew out the Heat, and in game 4 ultimately tied the series. But to end the 76ers they ended up losing back-to-back games to the Miami Heat, which led Jimmy Butler to go into the tunnel and be saying this.
Tobias Harris over me?
Yep, them choosing Tobias Harris over Jimmy Butler turned out to bite them in the ass. Now it's the 2022-2023 offseason, and James Harden's a free agent, and we don't know, is he gonna come back to the 76ers or is he gonna call it quits and go to a different team? A lot of Houston rumors are going into the air for him to reunite with Houston. He ultimately signed a 1+1 deal. He also took a pay cut that year because he was promised more money after his contract was up. Now this would be the year Embiid finally triumphs, finally wins his MVP after 3 years of him being in contention. He led the league in points with 33.1 points per game and free throw attempts yet again with 11.7. Winning the MVP only made it feel like it was destined for the Philadelphia 76ers to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals at the very bare minimum. Also with James Harden's pay cut came PJ Tucker to help. In the first round, they matched up against the Brooklyn Nets yet again, where Embiid did get hurt towards the later end of that series, and led to him missing game 1 against the Celtics. In that game 1, James Harden did put up 45 points to lead them to a 1-0 series lead. Embiid came back and they proceeded to lose back-to-back games, now being down 2-1. Harden then leads 76ers yet again with 42 points this series out. Embiid has now dropped 30-point double-doubles in back-to-back games. Game 5 being in Boston, and a must-win game to Philly. Embiid then comes into Boston, drops 30 points and win for Philly to take a 3-2 series lead going back to Philly. But now game 6, the 76ers could not have asked for a better script. On game 6 in their home to send the Celtics home packing for Embiid to finally make his Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in his career. To start this game, throughout the first 3 quarters, Jason Tatum proceeded to stink it up with 3 points in 3 quarters. It felt like that Philly had it all figured out. They shut Tatum down for 3 quarters. All they have to do is shut him down for 1 more. And unfortunately, they could not do that. Philadelphia then let Jason Tatum put up 16 points in the 4th quarter and force a Game 7 in Boston. Now, this is Embiid's last chance for redemption. Going into Game 7 from Jason Tatum and Joel Embiid, only 1 star shined. The other one, the lights were just too bright. And unfortunately, the lights were too bright for Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid put up 15 points of 5 of 18 shooting. And while Jason Tatum dropped a historic Game 7 record, being 51 points, and yet again, Joel Embiid did not show up when the team needed him the most. And now, 2023-2024 2024. Harden just got traded to the Clippers from Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, and Nicholas Batum after, going to China throughout the offseason, calling Daryl Morey a liar for not paying him his money. And now with the team of Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid. Embiid to start the year was by far the best Joel Embiid we've ever seen to this date. He averaged 35 and 12 in his first 25 games of the season, up until he did get hurt against the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, right there. Wow. The reaction from Embiid, and Kuminga knew that there was trouble as well. He was calling for help right away as Embiid.
And I partially blame the fans and media for that, because prior to him tearing his meniscus, he sat out a game against the Nuggets, in which fans said he was scared of Jokic and didn't want to play in Denver. They didn't believe him. He went out there against the Warriors and unfortunately tore his meniscus and ended a potential back-to-back MVP run for him, and might have taken a year or two off his career while he was at it. And towards the end of the year, while the Sixers were falling into the play-in, and Tyrese Maxey trying to hold on to whatever hope they had left for the year, Embiid started to ramp up again, playing towards the end of the season, trying to maybe push him out of the play-in, whatever hope he has left. With Tyrese Maxey emerging as an all-star this year, they want to salvage it as much as they can. They still ended up in the play-in to play against the Miami Heat, in which they did beat Miami. Jimmy Butler got hurt. Now they have to face a New York Knicks team with Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, and Dante DiVincenzo playing out of their minds. Julius Randle was also hurt, and unfortunately Embiid didn't look like himself. He was playing hobbled, his eye was twitching because apparently it came out he had Bell's palsy. Never heard of it until then. And well, he also decided to, and in game one, he did a play which to this day I'll never understand why. He threw the self lob as much as it was a great fucking play. Unfortunately, this lob alone could have shortened his career a bit, but we saw blood coming out of it after the play. Even though Embiid averaged 33, 11, and 8, even dropping 50 points, it was clear it wasn't enough. And they lost in 6 games to the New York Knicks, sending the Philadelphia 76ers home too early. And now it's current day, and they signed Paul George in the offseason. But now we are now almost 3 weeks into the NBA season. Paul George hasn't looked the greatest so far, and to add insult to injury, Tyrese Maxey is out for several weeks. The 76ers unlucky streak continues, also with Embiid saying he won't play back-to-back games for the rest of his career. And that's it. Let me know what you guys think. If there's any truth to what media says about Joel Embiid, let me know in the comments down below. Before you guys leave, 96% of you guys are not subscribed. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button down below. And if you're curious about what I think about the Bucks current situation, the video will be on screen now. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.